Hi, so this is my presentation on my vocational autobiography. I am Ashley Smith, and I'm just going to take you through a little bit of my background, what my career goals are, what I hope to do in the future, and how I plan to help clients in career counseling. So, my vocational experience begins back in, well, my early teens, probably probably 12, about 12 years old. I started to work in my church, and I worked with I worked in various different roles. I wasn't paid, but I do count this as vocational experience because it really began to form who I am today. So I went on various different mission trips. We did them all over the country and also went international for one. We went to Spain. It was incredible. Really, really learned a lot, and it really helped to develop my love and passion for helping people. Also worked at vacation Bible schools in my church and was an integral part of putting those on every summer. And then also I just worked different other odds and ends jobs throughout my early teens. For money, I did work. I started in a tanning salon, and I couldn't even drive there. I was about 15 years old, and so my parents would drive me to my job, and then just kind of worked my way through school. Moving into my late teens, coming up on high school graduation, I really became interested in the medical field. I decided that I was going to go to school for nursing. It was attractive to me because it was a pretty short schooling. It was 2 years of prereqs and then 2 years in the nursing program. Going through the nursing program, I became a nurse extern, and I worked in the ER in Detroit. I worked in a couple different ERs, but my first one was an ER in Detroit, and I loved it. I fell in love with helping people with everything medical. I loved learning. I had great peers and great coworkers that really poured into me and taught me a lot about the medical field. I, however, going through nursing, as much as I love the medical field, I didn't feel like it was exactly where I wanted to be. I kind of just felt like nursing wasn't a career I wanted to be in for the rest of my life. And so in my mind, I didn't want to waste any more time. In my perspective, I didn't want to waste any more time on that schooling. But I did stay in the medical field. I became a phlebotomist. So I just drew blood all day and stayed in that role and working in the ER for about on and off about 7 to 8 years. So spent quite a bit of time in the medical field because I really did love it. I took the scenic route to get my undergraduate degree. I graduated from Metro State University of Denver with my BA in psychology, and I minored in biology. I had a goal of going to be a physician's assistant, and that was my career track. That was my goal from probably about 21 to 25-ish. That was the plan. However, I noticed in my final semester of undergrad, I was taking advanced cadaver anatomy, and I was struggling. It was so interesting. It was one of my favorite classes I've ever taken. Probably was my favorite class I've ever taken in undergrad. And I loved it, but I was struggling so hard. I had to really, really put in the work. And it was a hard class, but I just found myself studying double the amount of time that everyone else was in my class. And most of the other students were pre-med students. So they did make an exception for me. Being a psychology major, they typically don't take students that aren't pre-med or biology majors. So they did make an exception for me. So I wanted to work my butt off and prove that I did belong there, but I was struggling. And I remember my professor said, if you are having a hard time in this class, you're going to have a really hard time in PA school or med school or NP school or whatever you're going on to be in the medical field, mid-level and up, because this is exactly what PA school is like. And so that really kind of freaked me out. And so after that, that really kind of shook my goals, shook my foundation of where I thought I was going to be going. And so when I graduated, I ended up getting a job being an office manager and a medical assistant in a medical office. I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be forever, but it was a great opportunity to take right out of school while I continued to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So even after I graduated undergrad, I had no idea. And I remember I came home from work one day and I was laying on the couch and I was just, for lack of a better word, distraught over what I wanted to do with my life. I did not want to work in the office manager role anymore. And I was like, God, I know I want to go back to school. I know I want to get my master's in something. What do you want me to do? Like, just show me what you want me to do. And it instantaneously, for some reason, he put the word counseling in my head. And I was like, because I love psychology. That's what my major is in. I have always loved it. I just always thought that I would use it in the medical field. And so counseling popped in my head. God put that on my brain. And I was like, okay, well, let's explore this. I knew I wanted to do something with my faith, of course, and implement my faith into my future career. And so I began researching CACREP accredited faith-based counseling programs, and CCU, of course, was one of the first options that popped up. I did know of CCU before, having lived in Colorado for about 5 to 6 years and heard nothing but great things. So I applied, I interviewed, and here we are. I am, well, on the same track as all of you watching. And so I'm a year in, and I have never been more sure about a career in my life. I think that this is the exact path I'm supposed to be on. And I used to really get down on myself, like, how have you graduated with your undergrad degree and you still don't know what you want to do? How are you, X amount of years old and you aren't in your career yet? And just really kind of gave myself a hard time based on everyone else's timeline. However, if I didn't have the time in between undergraduate and graduate school, I wouldn't have the experience that I do now. And I really believe that I believe in God's timing and that it has all worked out to be His perfect timing. And I'll get into a little bit more on what my personal background and experience has meant to my current and future career. So my future career plans at this moment, my goal is to become an LPCA. That is the first level of a licensed professional counselor in the state of North Carolina. So when I graduate, I plan to sit for my licensure and then hopefully obtain employment as a Christian counselor. I am interning next semester at a Christian counseling center that I absolutely love, and just praying that maybe an employment opportunity would be there when I finish. My dream, and this has been my dream since I was in undergrad, even when I didn't know that I wanted to do counseling, I wanted to work with survivors of human trafficking. I recently volunteered with a global organization called A21. and they are in the anti-trafficking movement. They are a very big organization, and they do great work. So I volunteered with them this summer in Charlotte, North Carolina, and really made some great connections. So my dream when I am a licensed counselor is to partner with A21 and other local organizations to provide counseling, crisis counseling to survivors of human trafficking and sexual assault or abuse. It is a big passion of mine, and I I know that God is going to do big things through me with that population. So personal assessments, I've said before, I wish I would have taken the Myers-Briggs earlier on in my educational career, because when I found out that I was the INFJ, which is called the counselor or also called the advocate, I thought to myself, why didn't I know this sooner? I would have pursued a different route in undergraduate school and maybe got into graduate school faster and figured out what I wanted to do faster. But like I said before, everything just really fell into place, and God's timing is perfect because all of my background and experience really plays a huge role into how I will be a counselor in the future. So obviously, Myers-Briggs was largely involved in me switching my career from the medical field to the psychology counseling field. When I read more in depth about being the INFJ personality type, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was that typically INFJs process theories and theoretical information easier, and it comes easier to us than scientific based or biology based information. And that was just a huge flag to me. I wish I would have read that when I was studying to take the GRE for PA school, because it is so true. I have personally seen that in my life. It is so much easier for me to grasp theoretical information and theories and abstract information than it is for me to sit and memorize all of the muscles, bones, arteries, and nerves in your body. So that assessment has really been an integral part of developing my strengths as the INFJ and kind of fostering my weaknesses as well, and looking to see where I can grow and what I can do with those strengths and with those weaknesses. So as you can see in the picture over there, it's just a little bit of a description about the INFJ personality. And one of the possible careers is a counselor. So that is just perfect. The INFJ the Myers-Briggs is my favorite assessment for myself personally, and I love using it to learn more about others as well. So I think it could be really great to use for future clients who are looking for what they want to do in life or even a career switch. I think it also can be useful for clients who aren't even looking to switch careers, but maybe just looking to learn a little bit more about themselves and dive into more personal growth and personal development. So my cultural background and experience, I grew up in Michigan in a predominantly white school and church. It was never really brought to my attention that my upbringing was predominantly white until I got to undergrad. And in undergrad, I took another one of my favorite courses at MSU Denver was the psychology of prejudice. And it was incredible. It really opened my eyes and really pushed me to explore any prejudices I had, any biases that I had unknowingly or knowingly adapted from my upbringing, society, social media. So that class was the beginning of broadening my horizons and really diving into what my faith, what the Bible says about inclusiveness and anti-racism and anti-sexism, anti-prejudice um, topics. And so this has really led me to dive more into research and become very passionate about inclusiveness, anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-prejudice movements and mindsets, and really implementing that in my own personal life and also how I counsel, how I interact with others, where I shop, and what I support, what I stand for. All of it is so important. And I truly believe, I know that Jesus was the most accepting and inclusive person to walk this earth. And I just strive to be that. And I strive to display that in my everyday life and also in my counseling career. So I hope to use my platform, whatever that may be, to promote anti-prejudice, anti-racism movements. And it is an action-based movement. I don't think it's enough to just state that I am not racist. I think that we as Christians and as counselors need to be advocating for minority groups and really actively participating in those anti-racism movements. So my personal counseling methods and models, I highly align with the cognitive behavioral therapy method. I also, as I'm sure you probably could have guessed from my educational background and my work background, love the biopsychosocial model, just really looking at the person as a holistic being. I also do implement person-centered counseling. So my influence of personal history, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but I believe my personal history of working with people in the church was where I began to learn to love people and love helping people and just become a people person. And I believe that is what a counselor is. The medical field has played a huge role in my life. It's the longest field that I've been in to date. And I think it has really helped me to understand the neuroscience behind some psychopathology and the biopsychosocial model. I think it has really helped me to understand all of that, and I can use that information in my future counseling. My personal history has cultivated a strong desire to help others and a huge passion for people. Also, even though I originally picked a field, nursing, because the schooling was short, I have really come to develop a love for education. I love the program that I'm in right now. I love this master's program. I love learning, and I hope to be continually learning the rest of my life. So my plan for client assessments would be, first off, to get to know the person, to discuss their interests, desires, and experiences. I think that is really important before taking an assessment. If a client comes in and they're pretty lost on what they want to do, I think an assessment right off the bat can maybe be too much. And I want to hear what the client wants before what an assessment says about them. After that, I would have them take an assessment. I think that there are so many great options for assessments. Obviously, I love the Myers-Briggs, but I think the assessment should be chosen based on the client, their goals, their needs, their strengths, what they're really looking for in counseling. After taking the assessment, I'd love to review the assessment with them. Keeping in mind what they told me before the assessment. I want to focus on their strengths, their weaknesses, their desires, their goals, and their values. I think the values assessment is very important to know about a client as we go through career counseling. One of the biggest things I think in counseling is a collaborative relationship. So working not just for the client, but with the client to develop their personalized plan for them to get to their end goal. I think clients should always be a part of their treatment plan, and it should be a collaborative effort. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. I really appreciate it.